Afghanistan Pakistan relations involve bilateral relations between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The two neighboring countries share deep historical and cultural links. Each has declared itself an Islamic republic and both have become members of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Relations between the two countries have been strained since 1947. When Pakistan gained independence and Afghanistan was the sole country to vote against Pakistan's admission into the UN. Afghanistan immediately armed separatist movements in the nascent Pakistan and made irredentist claims to large swathes of Pakistani territory, which prevented the emergence of normalized ties between the two countries. Further tensions have arisen with various issues related to the war in Afghanistan, and with the millions of Afghan refugees who have sought shelter in Pakistan since the start of that war. Water rights. The growing relations of India and Afghanistan. Bilateral relations between the countries have been poor, beginning immediately after Pakistan became independent in August 1947. Afghanistan's sole vote against Pakistan's admission to the United Nations in 1947. Due to Afghan discontent with the permanency of the Durand Line, Afghanistan immediately laid irredentist claims over Pashtun-dominated territories within Pakistan, and demanded renegotiation of the border with the aim of shifting it eastwards to the Indus River, deep within Pakistani territory. Shortly after Pakistani independence, Afghanistan materially supported the failed armed secessionist movement headed by Mirza Ali Khan against Pakistan. Afghanistan's immediate support of secessionist movements within Pakistan prevented normalized ties from emerging between the two states. In 1952, the government of Afghanistan published a tract in which it laid claim not only to Pashtun territory within Pakistan, but also to the Pakistani province of Balochistan. Diplomatic relations were cut off between 1961 and 1963 after Afghanistan supported more armed separatists in Pakistan, leading to skirmishes between the two states earlier in 1960, and Pakistan's subsequent closure of the port of Karachi to Afghan transit trade. Muhammad Daud Khan became president of Afghanistan in 1973. Afghanistan, with Soviet support, again pursued a policy of arming Pashtun separatists within Pakistan. The Pakistani military have accused Afghanistan of sheltering various terrorist groups which launch attacks into Pakistan, while Afghan authorities have blamed Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI, for funding warlords and the Taliban, and for basing terrorist camps within Pakistani territory to target Afghanistan. There is considerable anti-Pakistan sentiment in Afghanistan, while negative sentiment towards the Afghan refugees is widespread in Pakistan, even in Pashtun-dominated regions. However, former Afghan President Hamid Karzai has described Pakistan and Afghanistan as inseparable brothers, while also alleging that Pakistan uses terrorism against Afghanistan, which is due to the historical, religious, and ethno-linguistic connections between the Pashtun people and other ethnic groups of both countries, as well as to trade and other ties. Each of the two countries features amongst the others largest trading partners, and Pakistan serves as a major conduit for transit trade involving landlocked Afghanistan. Southern and eastern Afghanistan is predominantly Pashto-speaking, like the adjacent Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, federally administered tribal areas, and northern Balochistan regions in Pakistan. This entire area is inhabited by the indigenous Pashtuns who belong to different Pashtun tribes. The Pashtuns were known as and have lived in this region for thousands of years. Since at least the first millennium BC, the Durand Line border was established after the 1893 Durand Line agreement between Mortimer Durand of colonial British India and Amir Abdur Rahman Khan of Afghanistan for fixing the limit of their respective spheres of influence. The single-page agreement, which contained 7 short articles, was signed by Durand and Khan, agreeing not to exercise political interference beyond the frontier line between Afghanistan and what was then the British Indian Empire. Shortly after the demarcation of the Durand Line, the British began connecting the region on its side of Durand Line to the vast and expansive Indian railway network. Concurrently, the Afridi tribesmen began to rise up in arms against the British, creating a zone of instability between Peshawar and the Durand Line. As a result, travel across the boundary was almost entirely halted, and the Pashtun tribes living under the British rule began to orient themselves eastward in the direction of the Indian railways. By the time of the Indian independence movement, prominent Pashtun nationalists such as Abdul Ghaffar Khan advocated unity with the nearly formed Dominion of India, and not a united Afghanistan, highlighting the extent to